Good morning, I'm Elton Robinson with your July 17th grain update. Corn and soybean prices have risen to new highs on lower than expected acreage for corn and tighter short-term stocks projections. In its July report, USDA pegged the U.S. corn crop at 13.5 billion bushels, which was down from June, but it did not lower its estimate for corn yield despite trade expectations that it would do so. The government also raised corn use for ethanol by 25 million bushels on higher forecasts for gasoline consumption. Soybean prices rose as the government projected more production but fewer supplies. U.S. soybean production is projected at 3.9 billion bushels, while yield is projected at 46 bushels per acre, unchanged from last month. Soybean crush is up, reflecting increased domestic use, while soybean ending stocks are projected at 425 million bushels, down 50 million. Experts believe that further reductions in yield and production estimates in corn and soybeans are forthcoming due to the lingering impact of heavy rainfall in June and early July. Many Midwesterners, however, are now suffering from high heat. USDA projected higher sorghum use, particularly for exports, and higher projected feed and residual use for sorghum and barley. U.S. rice production was lowered 12 million hundredweight, mostly due to a decrease for both long grain and short grain. World rice production is projected lower at 480 million tons, but that's still a record. USDA raised U.S. wheat supplies by 58 million bushels. Wheat exports were raised 25 million bushels on increased U.S. supplies and reduced wheat production in Canada. Ending stocks for wheat were raised 28 million bushels to 842 million, the largest since 2010-2011. Despite the higher stocks, USDA is projecting higher prices for wheat on higher cash prices and the rising outlook for corn. Although it's not affecting price at this point, we should note that the Islamic State terrorist organization is now in control of much of the wheat-producing land in Iraq, which could have dire consequences for farmers in the region. Here's the latest update on weekly exports. Wheat exports of 286,800 metric tons were up 7% from the previous week. Corn exports of 1.13 million metric tons were up 17% from the previous week. Destinations for corn included Japan, Mexico, South Korea, and Saudi Arabia. Sorghum exports of 75,000 metric tons were up noticeably from the previous week. The destination was China. Rice exports of 18,000 metric tons were down 83% from the previous week, with small amounts going to El Salvador, Mexico, Canada, and Saudi Arabia. Soybean exports of 168,000 metric tons were down 17% from the previous week, with destinations including Mexico, Japan, and Colombia. Meal exports were down 21% from the previous week, while soybean oil exports were down 66%. Beef exports were up 4% from the previous week, while pork exports were down 39%. According to the latest crop progress reports, only 69% of the U.S. corn crop is in good to excellent condition this year compared to 76% at this time last year. Several states report double-digit percentages of both corn and soybeans in the poor to very poor category, including Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, North Carolina, and Ohio. Meanwhile, much of the sorghum crop is in good to excellent condition, with exceptions in Illinois, Missouri, and Louisiana. Only 4% of the U.S. rice crop is in poor to very poor shape, while 70% is listed in good to excellent condition. In California, 85% of the rice crop is listed as good to excellent. In Mississippi, 78%. About 65% of the U.S. winter wheat crop is harvested, only slightly off the 5-year pace, but it lags behind in Indiana, Colorado, which is starting to make significant progress, Michigan, where no wheat has been harvested as of yet, Missouri, which is making steady progress, and Ohio, which has been experiencing heavy rains. The California drought continues unabated, although many are hoping against hope that an El Nino will bring rain at some point. It's finally starting to dry up in the Mid-South, although some farms along the Delta in West Tennessee are still battling floodwaters. Southeast producers are getting some work done and grain crops are looking good. Some areas are needing rain. In Georgia, Newton County Extension Agent Ted Wynn says corn production is nearing maturity and dryland production is looking good. That's it for this week's report. I'm Elton Robinson. Thanks for listening.